Hey there, I'm Alex, a game developer working on Dreadwinter, my cozy fantasy coffee shop sim. You can now try out the demo on Steam. First, for anyone new, Dreadwinter is a game where you're put in charge of a magical coffee shop of the same name, and how you run it is up to you. You can focus on building up your customer count and making money, which will result in you having to automate to keep up with demand. Or you can focus on your craft and making good coffee, which will build up a community of customers that are loyal to you. You can also become an adventurer and explore the world, either on the side or as your main job. When I released my demo last year, I felt that it wasn't a good representation of what I wanted my game to be. I was rushed, inexperienced and burnt out, which resulted in a demo that I wasn't happy with. This time around, I wanted to take things slowly and release it when I was satisfied with what I had. While there's still plenty of bugs and things to improve in the demo, I was happy with the state the game was in, and I thought that if I kept delaying it to clean up every bug and add more content, it wouldn't ever get released. So I set a date once I felt it was in a good spot and would release my demo no matter what. So what I want to talk about in this devlog is what's been added to Dreadwinter since the last devlog, and what's changed overall since last year's demo, both in terms of the game and how I approached its development. The demo allows you to play the first 7 days of the game, which is just under 3 hours of playtime, and my goal was to have enough content to fill that time, with the focus being on the first hour, which is around the average playtime. This includes things like cutscenes and regular customer visits, as well as having enough progression and things to unlock in that time. A lot of the systems were already in place, so it was a matter of taking the time to actually add the content itself. This was something I kept putting off, as rather than expanding on the existing features, I wanted to add additional ones to pad out the gameplay, which is a trap known as feature creep. I think that after you've been working on your game for a while, you tend to lose focus on what makes your game interesting, since you've been working on it and testing it for so long it becomes stale, and you feel like you need to add new features to keep it interesting for yourself, rather than the players. Dreadwinter at its core is a game about running a cafe, and the way to keep players interested is by making sure that the interesting part is what you can do in it, rather than outside of it. With that in mind, I started focusing on the parts of the game related to the cafe. The main thing was adding the remaining regular customers and building up a questline for it. Regular customers are unique characters that you can only encounter in the cafe, and as you get to know them, will provide alternative ways to get things done. Peabody, who is a dwarf that owns a construction company, is one example, as she will eventually offer to build a kitchen in the cafe for free. Some characters know each other and will recommend the cafe after visiting, which means that in some cases you will need to serve one character to be visited by another. Over time, they'll start interacting with each other more, and one of the storylines in the game will start to take shape. With the demo being in the first week of the game, you'll mostly be introduced to the characters, so I wanted to show a few connections to try to present that idea. There are now 6 regular customers who will visit at different points in the week. I was originally planning on having 10 regulars, but I realised that with 2 shifts each day, that leaves 14 possible times for regular customers to visit. I don't want players to feel like they have to be open all the time or risk missing a visit from someone, so the final number will probably be a bit lower. As your reputation increases and you bond with the townspeople, I plan for them to start visiting Dreadwinter as well, so there's that to account for. I also added more dialogue to characters and customers, so that it was less likely to repeat itself, which is something that was noted before. Writing dialogue is a lot more difficult than I expected, as I wanted a mix of small talk and more interesting topics. I don't think that every line of dialogue needs to be a lore bomb, so some generic dialogue is needed for variance. It might be that I'm not a great conversationalist, but trying to think of small talk that fits each character isn't easy. The world of Dreadwinter has grown, which did make writing dialogue easier, as there are more characters and topics to talk about, so I could incorporate that into some of it. On top of that was adding some extra furniture. It's not too much right now, but I wanted to have the option of more than just tables and chairs. The small aquarium I added made the cafe a lot more interesting to look at, and has become a staple of my test saves, so I'm planning to add more animated furniture into the game in the future. I finished revamping the combat system into a card-based one, and made Hollowwooder's Edge explorable, which is a forest dungeon next to the cafe. There's only a few levels and enemies to fight, but the goal is to give players an experience of the new combat system and make sure it works. A feature that was missing from the previous demo that's now in the game is character schedules. To make the town feel more alive, I wanted to have the characters move around and go about their day. Since I haven't added every character and location, the schedules are quite simple for now, but I think it does add some life to the game. I did actually add it last year, but disabled it due to a bug that I only recently fixed. At the start of the day, or when the game loads, each character loads their schedule, which is essentially a set of positions to go to at a given time, and any actions that should be done once they've arrived, such as opening their shop or loading an animation. Whenever the time changes, each NPC will check if there is a location to move to at that time, but also, if it's 6 AM, they'll reset their schedule. In a lot of sim games, as there's a mandatory bedtime, they can reset the NPCs once the player sleeps, but as there isn't one in Dreadwinter, it needs to check if it should reset whenever the time changes. The bug was caused because I forgot to check the minute, which meant that as long as the hour was equal to 6, the schedule was reset, causing some characters to enter a loop for an hour. While this was fixed, I believe there are still some inconsistencies in the pathfinding, which occasionally causes NPCs to walk off into the void. There are a lot of simple to fix bugs like this in last year's demo, but I was in such a rush that I didn't have time to figure out what the issue was. This time around, I tried to focus on doing things in shorter bursts and keeping my motivation up. While you may feel like you need to be putting in 10+ hour days, unless you can genuinely work for that long, it often results in lower quality work, especially towards the end. This is something I experienced last year, and to this day I'm still finding code and assets that look like I made it while I was half asleep. In the end, I do feel like I started to enter into burnout territory, especially in the last week, as I felt like I wasn't working particularly hard, but I was still dead tired at the end of the day. Part of it was because I had a lot of small tasks to do, which individually didn't take long, rather than having big features to add that might take a week at a time. This meant that I was getting through things faster, which may be why I didn't feel like I was doing much, but I do think my motivation started to drop, as I'd do the tasks I planned for the day, and then stop. As a result, there are a good amount of avoidable bugs that players have found, which are down to me forgetting to enable a collision box, or assuming something was working when it wasn't. The best solution in this case is to take a break, but as I said at the start, I think I would have ended up delaying the demo even more. I want the first impression to be perfect, but ultimately as a solo developer, it's hard for me to find bugs and figure out how things should work on my own, so having a demo that people can play and give feedback on is really useful, and at some point I have to bite the bullet and release it. With that being said, I am happy with the overall state of the game, it's just that there are some easily avoidable mistakes. The feedback that I have gotten in the short time since releasing the demo has been very helpful, and it did make me realise that I was starting to burn out, as there were a lot of things I could have done better but chose not to. My aim for the next few months is to work on fixing the bugs and making adjustments to the game in time for the October Steam Next Fest. Some of the issues are down to negligence, but there's also a lot of old code that is now interacting with new code that's causing strange behaviour, as well as design decisions I made a long time ago that are quite odd. I'll need to do more extensive playtesting to get an idea of what needs to be done, so any feedback is appreciated. After that, I'd like to start working on music for the game, and then start increasing the total playtime from 3 hours. I want the playtime of the full game to be around 50 to 60 hours, and my goal is for Dreadwinter to have content into at least the 3rd year in the game, so there's a lot that needs to be added. The bulk of it is now content rather than features, so development should speed up. My goal is still to release in the first half of next year, so hopefully I can stay on track. That's it for this devlog. Remember to like and subscribe, wishlist Dreadwinter and try out the demo, and thanks for watching.